Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of my Kerbal Space Program Let's Play. Last episode we launched this ship into orbit, and then we sent up a refueling mission to make sure it would have enough Delta V to get to the moon, and this episode we are going to be taking it to the moon and trying to land the front section of it on the moon. The plan here is to transfer over to the moon and circularize using this command module section, the rear section, and then detach that front section and have it execute the landing. Then once we've landed, we will ascend back into orbit and rendezvous with the command module. After that transfer is taken care of, we set up our circularization burn around the moon and go ahead and jump over to execute that capture. We set up our orbit so that we'll be circularized around 140 kilometers. That'll be good for making sure that we're low enough that it won't take huge amounts of fuel for the lander to actually reach the surface of the moon, while still being high enough that we can set up a easy rendezvous once the lander has gotten back into orbit. After we're captured, it's time for us to prepare for landing, which means making sure that we've got the correct crew members in the lander. So Valentina and Bill will be going down to the surface. Valentina piloting, Bill getting the science. After undocking, we are pretty much ready to go in for landing. We just need to figure out one critical piece of information, which is where are we going to land? So I do have a contract to land in the Midlands and gather science there. So I'd like to ideally do that. So I know that right now I'm over the Midlands, or at least recently, so I was looking down at the surface there to try to figure out exactly where I should land. I was trying to hopefully set up some sort of waypoint that I could target, but unfortunately that is not possible. We go ahead and warp over to this landing burn where we're going to be trying to bring our periapsis down low over the Midlands, and then once we're over the Midlands we can begin to slow down and get ready to come in for landing. After warping, we just need to align ourselves with that maneuver node and get ready to execute it. It should be a relatively short burn, about 10 seconds. We've also drifted away from that command module, so we don't have a huge risk of actually hitting it. This isn't necessarily the most efficient way to land on the moon, but we have a pretty decent amount of Delta V right now, so we can afford to be a little generous. The most efficient way would be to come in from a much lower angle and spend as much time as possible just focusing on decreasing your lateral velocity, or rather spending as little time as possible focusing on decreasing your vertical velocity. The higher that you are, the more time that gravity ends up pulling you down, and that means the more fuel that you have to burn to fight against gravity. Unfortunately, we don't have any great tools for planning out our landing precisely, and as a result of that, we have ended up undershooting the Midlands, and we are currently targeting the Highlands. Unfortunately, we've also committed ourselves to this landing to such an extent that it would potentially be unsafe for us to try to extend it and land in a different biome. So I decided to just continue with this landing, and hopefully we will have enough fuel to make a short hop and end up in the Midlands. I think I was a little bit too generous with my Delta V usage on this landing, but I really wanted to make sure that it was pulled off successfully, so I end up using a lot of fuel to make sure that we come in at a pretty slow speed, but we do execute a landing right next to a really picturesque pair of craters, and we'll be able to get some good science here in just a second. After collecting our first big chunk of Mun Science, we take Bob out for a nice little stroll, and he's going to head on over to this rim of the crater that we landed right nearby. I figured that's a pretty good spot to plant a flag. While we did end up landing in the wrong biome for that contract that we have, we still ended up landing in a pretty great spot. I really like this view with these two craters overlapping each other. It's an excellent spot to place this flag, and as you'll see in a second, I'm not the most creative person ever with my flag names, but I like them to be accurate at least. With the sightseeing out of the way, it's time for Bob to get to work and set up these deployable science experiments. They are new with this recent expansion in the game, Breaking Ground, and I really like them. They give you something to do on the surface other than just collect EVA reports and surface samples. After a few minutes work, Bob has finished placing all of the science experiments. It's just the one for now, that mystery goo observer over there on the left. We've also got the control box and 2 solar panels to power these 2 instruments. And once that's all taken care of, it's time for us to head out. I do decide that I want to do a short hop here and go over to a Midlands biome to try to get some science. It's over to the east here. We had about 900 meters per second of delta V when we took off here, so this is really cutting it close, but if things do go wrong, I do have a little trick up my sleeve. We end up burning a decent amount of delta V, making sure that we can get over to the Midlands, and you can see here I'm starting to get a little concerned about that. I'm actually using RCS to supplement our liquid fuel. I might have been better off using a bit more of the RCS here, but I do also want to make sure that I've got enough for rendezvous later on. But right around here we find a decent landing spot and go ahead and slow ourselves down while coming in for this final approach. Nice and tender here with this landing. We started our burn a little bit later on this time than we did with our previous landing because I'm more concerned about delta V than I was with that previous one. But we land successfully. We've got 428 meters per second left. We also have a decent amount of RCS, 200 meters per second, so that could come in handy. And we go ahead and collect all the science that's available here. Since last time was Bob's turn, this time we let Valentina go for a little walk and stretch her legs, grabbing a surface sample and EVA report, and we'll be having her plant a flag with another not very creative name right here. And with this other landing taken care of, that is going to be it for this episode. Next episode, we'll be trying to launch off of here and rendezvous with the command ship, and then head back to Kerbin. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.